Hey guys, what's up? Public here, back with another video. After quite a long stream, we have finally gotten to see Archon on the War Within Alpha. So in this video, we're going to kind of break down what it looks like so far, couple initial thoughts here and there will also be a feedback post linked down below. Let's dive into Archon. Okay, so Archon is shared between Shadow Priest and Holy Priest. So a couple of the nodes do change what they do depending on which spec that you're playing. In this video, we're just focused on Shadow Priest itself. So starting off here, you're going to see a lot of these nodes have a lot to do with Halo and buffing our cooldowns. That's kind of the name of the game here at this tree. So starting off, we have Power Surge, which says casting Halo also causes you to create a Halo around you at 100% effectiveness every 5 seconds for 10 seconds. And additionally, the radius of Halo is now increased by 10 yards. So you're effectively spawning duplicate Halos out from you. So you get the one initial one at 0 seconds, you get one at 5 seconds, and then you get one at 10 seconds. And then the radius is now all the way up to 40 yards. In practice, when you're actually testing on alpha, it's like 37 or 38 yards, but you know, it's much bigger than what it is normally. So now moving down, we'll go down the middle row first. This just says Resonant Energy. We have enemies damaged by your Halo take 10% increased damage from you for 5 seconds. So roughly speaking, this is going to last about 15 seconds, give or take. So for that initial burst of our cooldowns, you'll get increased damage here from this node. Going down the middle section, we have a choice node for utility points. We either pick Word of Supremacy, which gives Powered Fortitude an additional 5% stamina. Now this is just for you though. So even though if you have this, your entire raid is not getting this increase. Only you as the priest is getting this increase. So you're not feeling like you're pressured to play this if you're not exactly needing that survivability and things like that. This is still extremely strong. You're basically getting a double Powered Fortitude onto your character, which is pretty awesome. The other side of the choice node simply is just giving Dispersion an extra 2 seconds of duration. So while this could be good in niche cases or maybe PvP perhaps, I don't see this being used as much in PvE, and I think the 5% stamina, super strong. Going down, we kind of revert a previous nerf that had happened to us on live, where it says your Power Infusion effect, it grants you an additional 10% haste. So normally Power Infusion is just 20% haste, both for you and an ally when you cast it on them with Twins of the Sun Priestess. This node, it actually becomes 30% haste when cast on, when you get your Power Infusion. Now, the important part of this effect, the first thing that's probably popping in your head is, okay, well, does this mean I have to take this to give my ally 30% haste? The answer to that is no. Even if you're taking this, the ally still gets normal 20% Power Infusion. It's just when you get it for yourself, it's now 30%. So no any kind of crazy degenerate gameplay. Everything's all good here. And then the final node is Divine Halo. So it says Halo now centers around you and returns to you after it reaches its max distance, healing allies and damaging enemies each time it passes through them. So if you couple this with the one above, basically our Halos, pulsing out and then coming back into us. And then we have our 3 Halos that are doing that, which is going to be really cool visually for that first kind of 15 seconds or so of the pull. And you're probably seeing footage of this as well. So if you see me and the Halo coming in and out, that's all being spawned from me casting it. Now we move on to Perfected Form, which says your damage dealt is increased by 10% while Dark Ascension is active, and by 15% while Void Form is active. So pretty crazy node here. It's just giving us flat damage. Nothing really crazy here. It's just kind of buffing our cooldowns. It is giving Void Form a bit more, kind of rewarding that kind of extra gameplay there. And keep in mind, Void Form is already a bit of a disadvantage in terms of the modifiers that it's giving us to balance out for everything else that it's doing. We'll talk a little bit about balancing as we go through that. It does seem like it's okay right now, but we'll see where balancing ends up. Obviously, numbers are still very much a work in progress, but the idea here is that it's making our cooldowns more powerful. Then we move on to our other choice node for utility. First one is Shock Pulse, which says Halo damage reduces enemy movement speed by 25% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 2 times. So this is a 50% slow after it hits twice, and all of the kind of echoes of Halo, it coming in and out, will each refresh and apply this debuff. So for that, again, for that first like 15 seconds or so, and then you get an additional, like as it's expiring, it kind of falls off as well. You're getting a pretty massive slow on all of the enemies that it's hitting, which is pretty crazy. Probably not something you're going to run on Sanguine weeks, but could be kind of neat utility for sure. The other choice is Incessant Screams, which says Psychic Scream creates an image of you at your location, and after 4 seconds, the image will let out a Psychic Scream. So this is similar to that Shaman totem spell that kind of like duplicates a totem. So if you think about it from like a PvP or like AoE CC perspective in Mythic Plus, you're basically just getting like a double fear out of this. Now this does, is susceptible to like the DR and that kind of thing, so might be hit or miss depending on what you're looking at doing, but it still could be quite powerful too. As we move on, we go to our only choice node that we have on this tree that's related to damage. So when you're actually changing the tree in terms of like damage throughput, you're going to get everything else on the tree except you only get one of these two options. Okay, so first up we have energy compression. It simply just says Halo damage and healing is increased by 30%, which is pretty crazy considering Halo's damage itself is actually uncapped in terms of damage. The healing is reduced, I think, starting at 6 and beyond, but this is a pretty big damage node, especially for like, short-lived targets and that kind of thing. The other choice is sustained potency. So this one's a bit more complex. It says creating a halo extends the duration of Dark Ascension or Void Form by 1 second. So every time you cast Halo, you get the echoes as well. So every cast of Halo is effectively going to give you 3 seconds increase to these cooldowns. The second part simply reads, if Dark Ascension or Void Form are not active, up to 6 seconds is stored and applied the next time you gain one of these buffs. So this is particularly good for like pre-pull cases in the opener or in between things like that, especially for Void Form, where you're going to get, basically our cooldowns are just going to be lasting longer with this. So because Halo is now a 1 minute cooldown, it's going to sync perfectly with Dark Ascension. So that just means instead of Dark Ascension normally lasting 20 seconds, it's always going to last 23 seconds when you use Halo. And then Void Form, same kind of thing. You're always going to get a bit more value out of this just because of the way Void Form works. Getting 3 extra seconds of Void Form can translate to, 4 or 5 seconds of Void Form because of Void Form's natural extension itself. So, and in some cases, when you start getting a lot of gear, you do have enough time to cast Halo before you go into Void Eruption, and then also cast it while you're in Void Eruption a minute later if it can last that long. It's kind of tight, but it is possible. So you are kind of getting extra extension value out of this spell. So very cool spell here, and it does kind of give you that insurance if, if you're able to use it outside. So what I think is probably going to end up happening is for any kind of sustained targets, or especially like from like a rating perspective, sustained potency is probably going to be the play here just to get a bigger, beefier cooldown. And then if you're doing anything that's more short-lived targets, like lower keys, that kind of thing, I think you just end up scaling Halo's damage. But again, as you add targets, scaling Halo's damage might end up being better in the long run too. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. I can see both of these getting some use. Now, moving on to the right-hand side of the tree, we start with Manifested Power, which says creating a Halo grants Surge of Insanity. So this is really important where it says creating a Halo, which means all of the echoes that we're talking about from Power Surge also give us a proc of Surge of Insanity. If you're not sure what that is, that's either going to give you Mind Flay Insanity or Mind Spike Insanity as a proc. It still only stacks up to 2 times, but you are getting basically 3 extra Surges of Insanity for every kind of cast of Halo that you're getting, which is pretty sweet. Moving on, we go to Empowered Surges, which simply is buffing Mind Flay Insanity and Mind Spike Insanity by 25%, just giving these a really fat modifier. With this, and when this is active, it's actually going to end up making these spells super valuable to press. In fact, could be one of the most valuable things we can press outside of Devouring Plague. And probably Void Bolt as well. But as far as like Mind Blast goes or other things, this thing is going to be super valuable to press. And then finally, Energy Cycle, which says consuming Surge of Insanity has a 100% chance to conjure shadowy apparitions. So adding yet another spell that can spawn apparitions. This is one of the only things in the kit that is actually, or in our hero talents rather, that is interacting with shadowy apparitions. We don't really have a whole lot of ties into this, or into our spec tree with Archon at all. But this is kind of leading on some apparition-based talents, just getting more synergy out with this build. Okay, so that is Archon. That's all we have to show today in this video. Couple points of feedback. I do think we could see a bit of improvement here for sure. There's definitely kind of bringing up some of the old stuff we've talked about in the past with weirdness with Dark Ascension versus Void Eruption. This is empowering those cooldowns, but it's not really giving them a whole lot of identity or any visual changes, which would have been cool to see. And similarly with Mind Flay Insanity and Mind Spike Insanity, both of those spells also have their own kind of issues. So I'm hoping that they can use Archon as kind of an excuse really to work on and improve those cooldowns and make them just more interesting baseline. So we'll see what happens there. A couple other notes I'll just kind of read off from the feedback post. This does not actually change how Ancient Madness is working. Even though we're extending those cooldowns further, Ancient Madness is not changing. It's still working the same way it does today, so no real change there. Other than that, there's a couple other bugs that are kind of preventing testing, or some stuff is a little unclear. But I know they are looking for feedback, so we'll see what actually ends up being changed. Let me know what you think of Archon down below. I'm still a little partial to Void Weaver. It's hard not to like those animations, but let me know what you guys think. And let me know what you're looking forward to seeing for next War Within content on this channel. Big thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.